picked Annuity, 14 lottery winners. Who took Annuity? When most people imagine winning the lottery, they imagine one massive check, cashed immediately, spent however they want. But a surprising number of winners have made the opposite choice, turning down the lump sum entirely in favor of decades of steady, guaranteed payments. These are the stories behind that decision and why so many winners who've been through it call it the smartest choice they ever made. It's a choice that goes against almost every instinct sudden wealth creates. The excitement of winning practically begs for a single, enormous number landing in an account overnight, proof that everything really has changed in an instant. Choosing Annuity means deliberately walking away from that instant transformation in favor of something far less dramatic, but for the 14 winners behind these stories, far more sustainable. The math behind this decision surprises a lot of people the first time they hear it explained. When a jackpot is advertised at a certain number, say $200 million, that figure represents the total of all annuity payments spread out over roughly 30 years, not the amount sitting there waiting to be claimed in one lump sum. Winners who choose the lump sum instead typically receive somewhere around half to 60% of that advertised figure, before taxes even come into play. For many winners who have thought carefully about it, watching that number shrink dramatically before a single dollar is spent is exactly why the annuity option starts to look a lot more appealing. Several winners describe this moment sitting across from a financial advisor, watching the advertised jackpot cut nearly in half before any spending has even happened, as the exact point their thinking shifted. What looked on paper like an overwhelming, almost unspendable fortune suddenly felt a lot more finite once the true lump sum figure was laid out clearly. And for winners already inclined toward caution, that single conversation was often enough to settle the entire decision in favor of Annuity. One of the clearest patterns among winners who chose Annuity involves a simple, brutally honest piece of self-awareness, knowing they couldn't trust themselves with a massive lump sum sitting in an account. Several winners have spoken publicly about this exact reasoning, describing the annuity choice not as a financial strategy first, but as a form of self-imposed discipline. If the money arrives in structured, guaranteed installments over decades, no single bad year, no single reckless decision, no single manipulative person can wipe out the entire fortune in one disastrous stretch. It's a form of protection built directly into the payout structure itself, rather than something a winner has to maintain through willpower alone. This kind of honesty is rarer than it sounds. Admitting, even privately, that unlimited access to a massive sum of money might lead to poor decisions takes a level of self-reflection many people never get the chance to test in real life. Winners who've made this admission openly describe it less as a lack of confidence and more as simple realism, recognizing that nobody, regardless of how disciplined they consider themselves under normal circumstances, has ever actually been tested by holding tens of millions of dollars with zero structural limits on how quickly it could disappear. That protection extends beyond just the winner, too. Several annuity winners have talked about family pressure as a major factor in their decision, describing how a lump sum creates a single, massive target, a number every relative, friend, and stranger with a hard luck story immediately knows exists in full. An annuity payment, arriving steadily year after year rather than all at once, is dramatically harder to pressure someone into giving away entirely. It doesn't eliminate requests for help, but it does eliminate the catastrophic scenario where a winner, worn down by months of pressure, hands over their entire fortune in one emotional decision they can never take back. There's also a pattern among winners who'd previously watched someone else in their life mismanage a windfall, an inheritance, a business sale, even another lottery win in their extended circle, and drew a direct lesson from watching that money disappear within a few short years. For these winners, the annuity wasn't really a financial calculation at all. It was a deliberate structural safeguard built from first-hand experience, watching what happens when too much money arrives too fast with no limits on how quickly it can be spent. Tax planning shows up constantly in these stories as well, and it's one of the most consistently underrated reasons winners give for choosing annuity. A massive lump sum pushes a winner into the highest possible tax bracket in the very year they claim it, often resulting in a significantly larger overall tax burden than if that same total income had been spread across 3 decades instead. Several winners who've spoken about their annuity decision specifically cite this as the deciding factor, working through the numbers with an accountant and realizing that stretching the payout over time didn't just protect them from themselves, it genuinely kept more money in their pocket in the long run compared to what a lump sum minus a much steeper immediate tax hit would have left them with. For winners who ran these numbers carefully, the difference wasn't marginal. Depending on the jurisdiction and the size of the jackpot involved, spreading income across multiple decades can mean paying meaningfully lower average tax rates each year compared to the single, enormous tax bill that comes with claiming everything at once. Several winners have described this realization as almost anticlimactic, expecting the annuity decision to come down to willpower and discipline, only to discover that a straightforward accounting conversation made the financial case nearly as compelling on its own. Some winners describe choosing annuity specifically because it let them keep something a lump sum tends to quietly take away, a reason to keep showing up every day. Winners who suddenly have every financial need met overnight sometimes struggle more than people expect with a total loss of structure and purpose, especially if work had been a significant part of their identity. Several annuity winners have talked about deliberately choosing a payout structure that still required them to think about a budget, still gave them a reason to plan ahead, rather than removing every financial consideration from their life in a single instant. There's a particularly interesting pattern among winners who took the annuity specifically to protect their children or grandchildren, structuring the decision around a payment schedule that would still be delivering meaningful income long after the initial excitement had faded, sometimes even into the winner's own retirement years or beyond. For these winners, the appeal wasn't really about protecting themselves from bad decisions in the short term. It was about building something that would function almost like a pension, a reliable, predictable source of income for the rest of their life, regardless of what happened with any other investments or decisions along the way. Several winners have also pointed to a much simpler, almost psychological reason for choosing annuity: the comfort of knowing there's always more coming. Winners who've taken lump sums sometimes describe an unexpected, disorienting kind of anxiety once the initial excitement fades, watching a massive number slowly shrink with every purchase, every gift, every investment that doesn't pan out exactly as planned. Annuity winners describe a fundamentally different relationship with their money, each payment functioning almost like a reset, a reassurance that even if last year's spending wasn't perfectly managed, there's a fresh, guaranteed installment arriving to work with going forward. It's worth acknowledging that the annuity choice isn't without its own real trade-offs, and winners who've chosen it are usually candid about that too. There's an opportunity cost to consider. A lump sum invested wisely and aggressively has the potential to outgrow what a fixed annuity schedule provides over the same time period, particularly for winners with strong existing financial knowledge or access to sound professional investment guidance. Several winners who chose annuity have acknowledged this trade-off directly, describing their decision as prioritizing security and predictability over the higher potential ceiling that comes with taking full control of a lump sum from day one. None of these winners describe this as an easy or obvious trade-off to accept, particularly in the early years. Watching news stories about other winners who took the lump sum and made aggressive, successful investments. But almost universally, the winners who stuck with their annuity decision describe a growing sense, year after year, that they'd chosen certainty over upside. And that certainty, especially for people with no prior experience managing large sums of money, was worth far more in practice than it had seemed on paper the day they made the choice. Inflation is another factor several winners have mentioned grappling with. A fixed annuity payment negotiated today doesn't automatically grow to match rising costs decades down the line, meaning the same dollar amount that feels substantial in year 1 may buy considerably less by year 20 or 30. Winners who've thought this through carefully describe factoring that erosion into their planning from the very beginning, treating the annuity as a stable floor to build additional savings and investments around, rather than assuming it alone would be enough to comfortably cover every future need without any additional planning. What ties virtually all of these stories together, regardless of the specific reasoning behind each individual decision, is a consistent theme. These are winners who thought carefully, sometimes for weeks, before making a choice that couldn't be undone once selected. Unlike winners who impulsively grab the lump sum in the excitement of the moment, annuity winners describe a slower, more deliberate process, weighing tax implications, family dynamics, personal spending tendencies, and long-term security against the appeal of having full, immediate control over every dollar at once. And for many of these winners, years or even decades later, looking back at that decision brings a specific kind of relief that's hard to replicate any other way. While plenty of lump sum winners have shared stories of watching their fortunes evaporate within just a few years, annuity winners overwhelmingly describe a much steadier, much less dramatic financial story. One defined by consistency rather than crisis, structure rather than chaos, a fortune that arrived exactly the way it was designed to, one guaranteed payment at a time, for as long as the annuity was built to last. There's something almost counterintuitive about how these stories tend to end. The winners who chose the smaller, slower, less exciting option are, by a wide margin, the ones telling calmer, more stable stories decades later. No dramatic collapse, no cautionary headline, no painful lesson learned the hard way. Just steady payments arriving on schedule year after year, exactly as promised, long after most of the lump sum winners from that same era have already told very different kinds of stories about where their fortune ended up.